Before we get into today's episode, I want to ask you a quick favour. If you're getting value from any of our podcasts, and I genuinely hope you are, could you take just 30 seconds right now and leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify? It sounds like a small thing, but a rating would make a huge difference, and it'll take less time than pouring a cup of coffee. G'day. Welcome back to the AgriCoach Wealth and Wisdom Podcast. My name's Ben Law and I'm the Financial Bloke, back with another mini episode. Short, sharp and to the point. Just one idea that might happen to change your future. I want to ask you something and I want you to think about it honestly. Is there a conversation your family needs to have about the farm, about where you want to be in say 10 years, about whether you all want the same thing that just hasn't happened? Not because anyone decided it wasn't important, not because you don't care, but just because there's always something more urgent. There's always something that needs doing first. If the answer's yes, and I bet for most of you listening it is, I want to talk to you today about why that is and why it's costing you far more than you think. There's an analogy I want to start with, and it's about a leaky pipe. It starts as a damp patch in the dirt somewhere near the trough. You notice it on the way past, maybe late in the afternoon, maybe between jobs, and you make a mental note, I'll get onto that. And then you don't, because there's a pump to fix, a fence to pull up, and a mob to shift before the weather turns. And so you drive past it again, and again, and again. And the whole time, your most precious resource, water, is quietly bleeding into the ground. Not in a rush, not dramatically, just steadily and consistently, day after day, until you come out one morning and the trough's empty and the cattle are standing around, stressed and dry on a 40-degree day. What was a 20-minute job with a hacksaw and a fitting 6 months ago is now a crisis. The pump's blown up, the water tanks are dry, and you're carting water. You've got stock at risk, and you knew. You drove past it 100 times. You just never stopped to fix it. Now that's distraction, not laziness. You were busy doing real work the whole time, but the leak kept running while you're doing it. Now for farming families, the are we all on the same page conversation is that leaky pipe. It starts small. Dad's in his 50s. The kids are starting to come back to the farm. Things are going well. And then someone says, we should probably sit down and talk about the future. Everyone agrees. And then harvest starts, or it gets dry, or they buy another block, and everyone's focused on being busy. So the conversations get pushed. And what happens when it's being pushed? Well, misalignment starts to build. The current generation assumes there's plenty of time. The next generation starts drawing their own conclusions about whether they've actually got a future here, or whether they're just the hired help with the same last name. Spouses start forming views based on what they've been told or haven't been told. And advisors are doing nothing because they've got no idea what's going on. Everyone's running hard, everyone's busy, everyone means well, but the system is running at different pressures for different people, and nobody's quite talking about it. So that's not alignment, that's a family that's quietly drifting apart while they all stand in the same paddock. And just like the leaky water pipe, the longer you leave it, the harder it is to fix. Most families I meet are not unaware. They know the conversation needs to happen. They know the family wants the best for each other, but they have that niggling feeling that they aren't quite all on the same page. They know there are assumptions floating around the kitchen table that have never been talked about and should. They're aware, they're just not accountable. There's no date in the diary. There's no one who said, I'm calling this meeting, it's on this date. There's no agreement about what needs to be decided by when. Awareness without accountability is just talk. And talk doesn't fix the leak. You cannot align a family around a plan that nobody's been brave enough to put on the table or everyone hasn't agreed to. So I'm not going to tell you this conversation is easy, but I can tell you this, the families who have it, even imperfectly, even messily, they're in a fundamentally different position to the ones who keep driving past the damp patch and telling themselves, we'll get to that later. So here's one thing I want you to do this week. I want you to get out your diary or your phone or whatever the hell you use and pick a date. actual date in the next 30 days where the family sits down together, the current generation and the next generation, whoever's involved in the business or needs to be in the room, and you have a conversation about the future. You don't stop there and try and solve everything. You don't need an agenda 50 items long. You just need to stop driving past the leak and say, hey, where do we all want to be in 10 years? That's awareness, accountability, and alignment. It just starts with one conversation that someone's brave enough to call and hold everyone accountable to turn up. And that somebody must be you. Because nobody wants to be the dum-dum that keeps driving past the leak. So if you've enjoyed that today or you've really resonated with that, make that time, but also share it with some family and friends that actually need to hear it. So until next time, I'm Ben Law, I'm the Financial Bloke, and remember, it's more important who you are than what you've got.